Okay, so I guess we can jump into our tinier topics now. And this one is kind of exciting and almost enticing to me, but I'm probably not going to do it since I'm replacing the G7 that I'm
Yeah.
filming on right now. But
So Sony
um,
has unveiled a new camera. Now a lot of people use Sony's
yeah.
RX100 for making YouTube content, but it's not really made for that. It is more of a photography camera, and it's missing a lot of things that are really
Mm-hmm.
helpful for, especially for vloggers, who are a lot of the people that buy those types of cameras. General vloggers, who haven't been doing it for a long time, might want better quality than a phone can offer, but aren't ready to go full, interchangeable lenses, or maybe just don't need to for the type of content they're making.
Well, especially for the size, right? Like even mirrorless
Yeah.
cameras with interchangeable lenses are huge, right? Like a Panasonic G7, its quality is kind of similar to not the newest
Mhm.
RX100, but like 1 or 2 gens ago, the same generation as when this was out, and it's cheaper, but it's
Yeah.
bulky and hard to do
And
that
so
kind of
this
work
camera
with.
that they've announced, the ZV-1 camera, is specifically made and designed for vloggers, which is very interesting. It's literally a cheaper vlogging-focused RX100. It's not made with the same, like aluminum build and everything. It is more plastic and more, cheaper materials. But an RX100 is like
Yeah,
$1,200. This camera's starting price is $800. However, until June 28th, if you want to buy one, they're giving you $50 off. Um,
which is kind of
yeah,
weird for a brand new
I think it's
product.
because they want to,
A little abnormal.
rather than sending out a whole bunch for review units, which would cost them a bunch of money, they want to get people to buy them because like the people
Yeah,
that they're targeting this camera at are the people that are going to talk about it anyway. And so instead
that's
of
true.
just
That's a good
sending out
point.
a bunch
Yeah,
of review
yeah,
units,
it's a
you
good
give a little
marketing
bit of a
strategy.
discount to get people to buy it right away that can't afford it, and then they'll talk about it because that's what the
Right,
camera's
right,
for, is to make videos. And so I think it's a
right.
pretty smart marketing strategy.
Okay,
Um,
I think
so
so. Yeah,
yeah,
and it really is
so to
enticing.
talk about it, so it's 4K 30, as well as 1080p up to 960 FPS. Now, obviously, it's not going to be the best quality
I was
1080p when you're doing
surprised.
that high a frame rate, but
Yeah, well, you're gonna get some rolling
yeah,
shutter and
but
not great
like,
light,
damn if having that
but
ability isn't nice. Like, because you have 240,
yeah,
480,
yeah,
960, and so having that flexibility where if you want to do like an outdoor slow-mo shot and you don't really care about the quality dipping for that because you want to do really low or really slow motion, that's just really nice to
yeah.
have. And normally you'd have to spend a pretty good amount of money to get 960 FPS on something.
And with the right light, I mean,
Yeah,
it can probably do decent quality,
yeah.
especially up to like the 240
And
range.
then so that
So
the 4K 30 quality should be pretty comparable to the RX 100, which is good because the RX 100 is pretty good video quality. Um, it also
yes, yes. I think they're the same sensor, right? I
I
assume they're the
believe
same
it's the same
sensor.
sensor as the RX 100 Mark V, not the current one.
And are
I,
we? Do
I
we have
think
the
it's the
Mark
Mark 7.
Six right now? Is that what we're at?
Yeah. I
Wow, man,
know
those
that,
go
so the
by
next feature I'm
fast.
going to talk about is it includes a built-in ND filter, which is huge. Um, that's a nice feature to have in
Wow.
a cheap camera. Um, yeah,
Yeah, that's a big deal. Neutral density
yeah.
filters are
And
incredibly
it
important, and
is
I
the
need to get
same
one.
ND filter that was in the RX 100 Mark V, which I think is the first RX 100 to start using those built in. Um,
So it's kind of almost like a tweaked
yeah,
RX
it
100
is
Mark
pretty
V
much
in
a
some ways
RX
here.
100
Yeah,
for vlogging. Um, and so another one of the big changes that's really
interesting.
going to help vloggers is currently on the RX 100, the camera isn't one of the really nice articulating ones. You have pretty limited movement on it. Whereas on the
Yeah,
ZV-1, it's a fully articulating camera. And what's really cool is that the camera turns on when you pull the screen out. So if you want to record
yeah,
something, you
yeah.
just
It's
get the
nice. So
screen
you just
ready and it's ready to record. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I appreciate
And
that about
then
it. I do.
there
I
is
do.
also, and this is not found on the RX 100 or I think most any of Sony's cameras, there is a front-facing recording indicator, a red light that you can turn off in the settings if you don't want that on for the types of videos you're doing, or if you're recording like multi-camera setups and you don't want the light to glare on something. So you can turn it off. However, like if you want to record from the front, you can see and make sure that it's recording. So that's really nice.
Yeah, yeah.
The microphone is specifically built to be for recording it like vlogging style. So where's my phone? If you're holding your camera this way, the microphone is specifically made to record audio from directly in front, and
I
it
like that
includes a
about it a
dead
lot.
cat in
Actually,
the
I think that's a
box
great feature.
to pop on the top to help with them.
Yes, yes. And it is a
Yes.
it's directional. So like it attempts to eliminate all background noise and just focus on the
Yeah.
subject that's in the center of the camera. Which is good
Oh yeah,
regardless
for
of if you're
sure.
using
Yeah.
it as a vlogging or just a
I was
regular
watching
camera.
Sarah
So,
Dietschy's video
yeah.
about it, and she had her air conditioning on behind her, or like essentially behind the camera,
Okay,
and you
yeah.
couldn't hear it. And that was without the dead cat on. It was just with
That's
the camera,
awesome.
like you couldn't hear it. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the dead cat's gonna help with wind noise, so I guess
correct. Yeah.
outdoors would be a
Yeah.
better test for that. But still,
So that's
yeah.
really cool. It's got a button on the top to change the depth of field, which is dope. And it changes it optically.
Yeah, I liked that
It
a
is
lot.
not
I
like
thought that was
software
amazing.
tricks like cell phones do. It's changing it optically. It's adjusting the depth of field. Yeah, the f-stop.
F-stop, right?
Um, and so
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
very helpful
yeah.
for ease of use and quickly being able to kind of get different types of shots. And in addition, um, it's got a feature called Product Showcase. So for those that don't know how most cameras handle autofocus, they try and if there's a face detected in a lot of these newer, like the RX100 and stuff, they try and prioritize focusing on eyes. And so if you want to record a product, I'm going to use beauty YouTubers as an example. If you want to hold your makeup up, it generally won't focus on that. However, this has a setting that you can turn on and
Yeah.
off to put the product up in front, and it will know to focus on the product. And then when you put it away, it pulls away. And the autofocus on this is very snappy. Very snappy.
I noticed
Yeah.
that. Yeah, that was really impressive. And that's actually like I think people
Yeah.
kind of forget how important that is sometimes. So like my Panasonic G7, obviously like I do everything manually on it. I have a camera rig for it. But when I first got it, I tried to use it with autofocus, and the autofocus is so atrocious on this. And I mean, let's be honest, Panasonic's never been that great at it anyway, but the G7 in particular has horrible autofocus. You have no idea how much of a hindrance that is to workflow and content quality when it's not working right. And so having good autofocus, which Sony has been good at for a long time, is great. But then being vlogger specific is starting to add even more to that, even better, more value for just YouTubers. That's not just the thing that vloggers do, right? It's like and talking head videos, which I guess are vlogs, but not
and
really,
then another
right?
really helpful feature for vlogging is it has a exposure mode that is not common in cameras, where it prioritizes keeping your face exposed. So if you're walking down the street vlogging and you walk under a bridge and the lighting changes, it will make sure that your face is
Mhm.
what it's focusing on exposing rather than the scenery around you.
Which is really important because a lot of
Yeah.
photography focused cameras
Yeah,
do the
they go
latter
for
of what you said
the
there.
average
And
exposure of the image rather than any specific thing.
yeah, and I feel like this is, it's not literally the first time, but it's the first time a big camera company has made something that is not just form fitting for vlogging, but is like technically oriented
Yeah,
towards the small
at the
creator, I
higher end,
feel
I think
like.
we've seen some, like,
Whereas,
$200-$300 cheapo video
yeah,
cameras earlier on in YouTube that people had made that were for YouTubers, that were very good because they were cheap-ass
yeah,
cameras.
yeah. Right, right. And then like you've always had this like you've seen this kind of downturn in pricing where you can get really good 4K video quality out of a camera that's not that expensive, but
Mhm.
you have to really know what you're doing. It's not meant for this kind of quick style YouTube. And like I like that. I like doing cinematography, but some content
And
creators just don't want to do that. That their goal is to do content. They don't care about why the video looks good or how to
yeah,
make it
and
look
for a
good. It
lot of
just needs
people,
to look good.
I mean, like, for, like, especially for, like, travel vlogging or not travel vlogging, because I guess you would want scenery and stuff, but for, like, vlogging where you're doing a lot of, like, walking around the city when you're vlogging, you don't really care about most things other than that you look good.
Yeah, that's also true. Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure knowing Sony, most of these settings are probably disabled, like you can
Yes.
disable them.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna do a scenery type thing, you just turn off
Yeah.
the face priority exposure, right? Now I'm hoping, and I know there's been some reviews of this, but I haven't seen any super deep dive reviews yet from some of the camera professionals. I am hoping that they also have some of the like quick settings and like memory ability, so that you can toggle between like, okay, here's my profile basically for vlogging,
Yeah,
here's
that
my
would be
profile
nice.
for
Yeah.
doing more scenic shots. So we'll see, because I like, and it probably won't be on the dial itself, but like just to be able to have some kind of
Yeah.
profile switcher would be really nice. That's something that I would actually like to have on my current camera.
Hmm.
Is just something to quickly change between, I'm filming
Yeah.
indoors, I'm filming
And
outdoors, that kind
then
of stuff.
the last feature I wanted to talk about on this, coming later this year, about they estimate summer of this year, they are going to be releasing an app to allow you to use the ZV-1 as a webcam as well. And so you're essentially looking at a situation where you could, buy this camera for $750 and have a really excellent
Yep.
vlogging camera with a mic that's actually usable outdoors, and have it be better than any consumer webcam. Yeah.
It's pretty
And
awesome.
then
Yeah.
in addition to that, they're not the only ones that
So
have that, using your camera as a webcam over USB feature. Canon already has that for Windows, and they have just
yeah.
released the Mac version. So that's some news I wanted to add, so that you can use it as a webcam for Mac.
Oh, I didn't hear
And
about
then
that.
in
Okay, that's
addition to
awesome.
that, Fujifilm just released their app to be able to use their cameras as webcams too. Yeah.
So at least some people are
Yeah.
trying to
Well,
do it. Some
I
companies are
think a
trying to
lot of
do it.
people
That's
realize
that's a
that at
big
this
deal.
point, price isn't the reason some people can't get webcams. Like, $300-$400 webcam, who cares if you need it for work? Well, if there's no webcams available, but there's a camera available, you might buy a camera if you can use it as your webcam.
Yes. Yes, and that's probably also why the
Yes.
Elgato Cam Link's sold out right
Yeah.
now. Lots of people
Yeah.
doing lots of camera
Um,
content.
and then for our
And
next
yeah.
topic, so the first alpha build of Steam for China has been released. This is literally a alternate Steam version being built for China specifically. And there's three distinct
Yeah.
differences so far from the current United States, European, everywhere else version of Steam. Um, so the first one is that when you launch a game, there is a healthy game advisory, and some of the stuff is about how it advises you not to play games too long, things like that. Actual like healthy gaming advisory stuff.
Well, the
Yeah.
kind of stuff you see Nintendo
Well,
do a lot of times. Yeah.
Japan
Yeah.
has a lot of regulations around healthy gaming anyway, and so most any Japanese game has this stuff in
Right.
there because
Yeah.
they already have to build it out for Japan. Um, but the
Yeah.
thing that stood out to me that was interesting, I'll say, about this, very odd and concerning, is that it literally tells people to boycott harmful games. And rejecting game piracy, I get why China wants to put in there, and I get why even Steam would put that in there. But you literally have Steam telling people to boycott games. It's weird.
Yeah. That's not good. It's
Yeah,
it's just
it's
weird.
it's
Yeah. I
something
don't know.
it's
It
something
seems like a
likely
weird
that
thing to be in
China
there.
wants, is boycott harmful games. If you're telling everyone to do that and someone doesn't, and then someone plays a harmful game that the Chinese government dictates is harmless, then that might affect their social credit
Yeah.
score. So,
So yeah, social credit score. We should get
I
one of
mean,
those here in America,
I'm
right?
not going to get into it. Because like we kind of currently pretty much could already have one without people really realizing
Yeah.
it. Um,
Yeah.
The
Yeah. That's
other
true.
thing, so the current build will not allow you to set custom profile pictures or even profile names, because supposedly the pictures and names,
Uh huh.
while you can upload them, they have to be approved by a government agency before you can use them.
That's just weird. Manual approval is
Well,
just
it's because
weird.
something like, for example, with everything that's going on in Hong Kong, you could potentially see a bunch of Chinese users who are sympathetic to Hong Kong, or
Oh.
even Hong Kong people, now that they essentially have to follow Chinese law. You could see them in protest set their profile pictures to umbrellas, for example, or Winnie the Pooh, or these other images that
Mm.
China dictates are bad, like cartoon characters and umbrellas that protect you from the
Yeah.
rain.
Right.
Um,
And they like to prevent any
Yes.
form of
And
uprising,
so that's
anything.
why that's there.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, and this follows, or this makes sense in that it fits in with Chinese existing guidelines on gaming. But certain users, based on their age, have certain restrictions based on what games they can play in certain hours of the day. And so one of the examples is if you're under 18, you can't play CS:GO at 10:30 at night or at 5 in the morning. Because under Chinese law,
Yeah.
certain games you can't play if you're a minor between 10 and 8. So,
It's interesting. It's interesting. Well, I don't know. I guess I'll say that I kind of hope. Well, I'd like to say I hope that something
I mean,
is done
nothing
about this,
really,
but nothing will be.
other than dictating
So
that, like,
nothing really can
like,
be.
unless the US government was like, yeah, you can't operate in China at all, nothing can be done.
Right. Then at that
Yeah,
point, they want the money, which I mean is understandable. I mean it's what they're doing is following a law, but it's not like them not being there changes
correct.
that law.
However, there is something interesting in that,
So
right now, with the way everything is in China, roughly 30-ish million people do have access to Western Steam. And China's a very big country, over a
oh
billion people. Um, but
yeah
this is likely going to restrict or lead to them losing that access, which is going to hurt. Specifically, one of the big concerns I've
yeah
seen discussed is Chinese indie game developers are going to have to then go through this. Like right
oh
now, they can kind of sidestep some things by uploading on Western Steam and having people that have access to that
right
buy those games through that, and they're gonna just that's gonna be done when this
yeah
drops. Yeah.
that's gonna be
So
axed completely. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that sucks. I mean,
yeah,
glad I don't
yeah.
live there, man. I'll say that the state of all things internet there are very disappointing. Um, so I guess at this point we're gonna jump into our
Tiny news.
so I had to do that time. So we're gonna jump into our tiny news here. So these will be kind of quick topics here. There's actually not a ton in here because, like I said, it was a little bit of a dry week. But I guess to start, YouTube's new chapter feature was speaking of Pornhub
Yeah.
earlier.
So for those that oh, I'll just say this. So YouTube has introduced a new chapter feature, and what this is, the TLDR of it is that it's essentially like a lot of YouTubers put timestamps in the description or in the comments of their video. It's just a way for them to integrate that into
Hmm.
the actual like timeline of the video. So when you're scrolling through the video, instead of
Yeah.
just scrolling to a time, you can move your mouse along, and if the YouTuber has set up these chapters, then it'll show you um, like the description of this portion of the video. So like in the case of something like a podcast, you
Hmm.
might see um, we probably wouldn't go as granular as individual topics within Tiny News. But for example, if this podcast, if we do it on
Yeah.
this, you could have a Tiny News section that you could quickly scroll to skip to. Um, and so like let's say
Yeah.
you're
Yeah. Which we may end up actually throwing that into WordCast. I never did the timestamps in the
yeah.
description. It takes up too much space, but
And
I
it's
may do
it's
that on
nice
the
because like
timeline here.
for
I think that
example,
makes
even if
sense.
you don't normally care about skipping between parts of videos, you could have a situation where YouTube doesn't always
Yeah.
save your place in a video, especially switching between devices. And so if you're watching a longer
Yeah.
video, well, you could try and time out when you're going to stop watching the video based on the end of a chapter. And then it's really, really
Yeah.
easy for
Uh-huh.
you to get back to where you want to go. Um,
Yeah, I appreciate that, especially when
yeah.
YouTube's
And the
just
reason we
horrible at remembering
mentioned
your place in
Pornhub
so
is
many
for
things.
those
Oh
that
man.
don't know or don't use the service, Pornhub has essentially had this feature for a while.
Yeah, so they I actually I can't remember Pornhub's parent company's name, but I want them to come out with a YouTube competitor because I feel like they're the only one that has
And
the
I mean,
infrastructure to
they've
do it.
created a lot of features, or Pornhub has, that YouTube has then copied. For those that also don't know, the
Yeah.
thumbnail, like when you put your mouse over the thumbnail and it shows a preview of the video, that was something on Pornhub for years before YouTube
Uh-huh.
had it. So,
Yes, yes, it was. And MindGeek
of
is the
course, that's the name of
parent
that
company.
company.
So yeah, MindGeek.
So,
Yeah. So it's cool. I'm glad YouTube's getting it, but it's just kind of funny because sometimes I feel like YouTube just isn't doing
Yeah.
a lot of innovation anymore. But whatever, I guess. I'd still like to see higher bitrate
Yeah,
on
that's not
YouTube. No, it's not. Well, it's just like they have these resolution selections, but it's like these don't mean anything to me. I'd rather have a bitrate
Yeah.
selection option as well. Like if they could like do like tiering where like your account is set to the high bitrate mode, and so when you select 1080p 60, it uses the higher of like 3 bitrate options. So you're not having to select it for every video, but you can set it like per account kind
the
of
thing
thing.
that I feel like
So
is
I
the
don't know.
case is that YouTube, Twitch, Netflix, all of these services, yes, they have the issue of their cost for bandwidth, but they also have the issue of
Yeah.
consumer data caps that they have to balance. And so even if they're willing
Yes.
to
Yes.
charge more for the service, or they're willing to eat the cost themselves, the issue is that, unless YouTube is like, we've detected you're using Comcast. Comcast has data caps in some areas. Contact Comcast before using this higher bitrate. People aren't
Yeah.
going to read that shit. They're just going to click the higher bitrate because it'll look better. And then they'll get
No,
charged
you're right.
overages, and then
Yeah.
they'll call
Yeah. Which
Comcast and
is
be like, "Why was I charged?" They're like, "Oh, you used YouTube a lot. Oh, I'm going to bitch at YouTube."
yeah. Yeah, no, I get that.
And
There's a
I
balance
know
there. I don't know.
exactly
That's
how
just something that
consumers handle
frustrates
that
me about
because
the
I
state
used
of
to work for a
internet.
call center for Sprint, and I know exactly how people would bitch about their overages.
Yeah, and it's just like I wish that overages weren't a thing. It was a little more understandable on wireless carriers,
Yeah.
but especially for regular ISPs, and now with wireless carriers, it makes me mad because it's actually limiting the
And, like,
ability to do
you and I
certain
have
things
talked
on the
about this
internet that are
too,
just super
but,
cool.
like, the way I've always seen it, especially for wired, is, I mean, and wireless has pretty much already been in this situation. Either charge for the
Yeah,
bandwidth or charge for the amount of data. Don't charge for both.
yeah,
Mobile has given you the best
agreed
data that
completely.
they
Yeah,
could based on the capacity, but you've had data caps. That's fair.
Mhm.
That if you're going to have data caps,
Yeah,
that's how you do it. You just let people use the internet as much as they
yeah,
want. The data cap is their incentive to not use too much. Oh,
right. You're
yeah.
letting the consumer
But when
self-regulate
they're
it or
using
pay
it, they're
more.
getting the
Yeah,
best
yeah,
available that the network can provide. Whereas with Comcast, for example,
right,
with the
totally.
data caps and with speed, I am paying for gigabit internet. I'm paying more to get faster internet, but I'm still limited on how much I can use because if I use my gigabit internet a little bit too much, I pay even more.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. It's horrible. And I don't know. I mean, it just disappoints me when I
Mhm.
like to see higher bitrate stuff, right? I use Tidal for premium audio, but I also like I run a Plex server, and the 1080p Blu-ray rips that I pull out of that look better than most
Mhm.
4K footage I see on Netflix, right? And so like watching 1080p Blu-rays at full quality is better than what we think of 4K and streaming, right? And that's just
Yeah.
like it's kind of disappointing.
You know, it's not disappointing.
um, yeah, this is really not
Yeah,
disappointing, and you guys should all go do
Borderlands: The
this.
Handsome Jack collection is free on the Epic Store for the next week.
Awesome. Definitely go grab it. That is such a
Mhm.
good game franchise to play through. This includes number 2 and the
And it
pre-sequel. Does
correct, and
not
it
include
includes
number 1,
the
correct?
DLC for both of those. Which
Yeah,
for
right.
Borderlands
So
2
you get the
alone, that's a
complete.
lot of content.
Oh, it's so much content. Borderlands, for those that haven't played it, does DLC right. So
Yeah.
definitely great to get the DLC if you can. And if you haven't played the franchise at all, I would recommend if you can go buy 1, which isn't very expensive, go buy it and play through that as well. But 2 was the best one. 3 is mostly, in my opinion, better than 2 was, but there's some toss-up stuff there. Definitely go play through 2. And
Yeah.
pre-sequel is just really interesting. So pretty awesome. So this is something I wanted to touch base on here that I'm really happy about, and I've actually been testing it out. So T-Mobile, they officially partnered with Google for RCS support. Now, for those that don't know, RCS stands for Rich Communication Services, and what it is it's what's supposed to replace SMS text messages for general public, and it's supposed to replace it based on phone number, based on an end-to-end kind of style, like SMS is, instead of you have iMessage, which iOS has had for a really long time and has been a big deal as to why some people stick with iOS and iPhone,
Blue
even if
bubble.
they're interested in the other phones. Right. So RCS is what's supposed to help unify that, and it has some advantages over iMessage, and then obviously advantages over SMS. So I'll get into what
Yeah,
RCS
gotta
is
be
really
real
quick, in a little more detail.
'Cause-
So RCS is basically taking SMS, where it's based on a phone number and it bounces through a server, but isn't necessarily stored on that server. But then enhances it with being faster, having higher data capability so you can send large messages, being able to see when it's delivered and when a message is read, being able to see when people are typing, and being able to send large photographs over RCS instead of having to use MMS. So the images are not compressed as much. You can send up to 105 megabytes right now is the default that the Android Messages app starts for. So overall, just really awesome. It's more like instant messaging, except that since it's based on a phone number and not stored on a server, you don't have to have an account. It's better data privacy than even iMessage, right? Now it's not end-to-end encrypted right now, but the hope is to change it to that in the future. So
I was gonna say I
go
kind of
ahead,
beg
were
to
you gonna say
differ
something?
on the. Well, it depends on the final implementation as far as data privacy, because right now SMS goes through a weird third-party company that like essentially nobody has ever heard of, and you can view the you can view data on there if you work at a carrier, for example.
Right. So
Yeah.
RCS avoids that. So two things. First, they're hoping to
Yes.
add end-to-end encryption. That is
part
in
will be
the
a big
plan.
deal.
That's not just like a speculated.
But
Yeah, so
iMessage
that would
also has
fix
that.
it completely. But then the other, but then the other aspect of it is that this data is not collected on a server. It is stored on the server until the server receives a delivery report from the other end, and then completely wiped clean from the server, no backups or anything like that. So even if there was access to it, it'd be for a very brief moment, whereas SMS can be stored by
Yeah.
your carrier for as long as you want. Now, this is specifically Google's RCS, because the carriers, in particular Verizon and AT&T, could not decide on a universal standard. They wanted their own standard with their own texting apps, because of course that's what they wanted to do. So finally Google said, no, F you, we're just going to push your own version through, and T-Mobile
Yes
agreed
and
with them
no.
and partners with them.
Sprint actually had partnered with them, and T-Mobile bought Sprint, and so they kind of entered into that partnership already.
Yes, but T-Mobile had not started their own version to
I
try and
mean,
compete
they
with
had
Verizon and AT&T.
Samsung phones had RCS only from T-Mobile to T-Mobile already if you use Samsung's messaging app for a while.
But that was just something that T-Mobile was enabling. Was run by Samsung, and I believe
Pretty
ran
sure
through their servers.
it was T-Mobile, not Samsung, that was running it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But they're going the right way
Well,
now.
at least they've gone in the right direction. Yeah. So now we have this. Okay, now all of a sudden T-Mobile and Sprint and obviously because they own them, and Google are all pushing for the same thing, and hopefully pushing other carriers to do it. But T-Mobile is also allowing this to be cross-carrier. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, if I misunderstand this, but doesn't this mean that if you use Google Messages on another carrier now, as long as the carrier's not blocking it, you can
I think
communicate
so,
with
but I
it?
don't know if enough of the technical details of this implementation to know for sure.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it's at least a step in the right direction. So I'm really excited for it. I've gotten a lot of people to switch over to it
But
since
to be
this
fair, you
announcement,
also make your
and
family switch messaging
really
apps
loving
like
it.
every week.
No, we haven't. I haven't made them switch
Oh, I
messaging
thought you
apps
had
in
made
like
them
6 years.
switch to. Okay.
I've never made them use anything.
You just talk
Yeah,
about making them
no. I
switch
mean,
to stuff every
I
week.
can. Yeah, I talk about
Okay.
options. I never actually like force it. But then this one, we were all interested enough to be like, okay, it has better features and better security, because it's still
Yeah.
more secure than SMS regardless. And when I was saying about better data privacy, by the way, just to be clear, is since it's based on your phone number, there is not information within there that necessarily defines who you are. And so even if that data is collected, which hopefully it's not, and hopefully end to end gets added because that's ideal, it's less likely to link back to you, right? So anyway, cool feature. I've been liking it. This next one, Phillips
Yeah, I'm
Hue.
gonna
You're the one
burn
that
through
put this
this
in here
real
because I
fast
didn't
because
really
I
read a
need to
lot
go to
about
bed. So there's some new leaks of a new version of their light strip and a new version of the Bloom light. The Bloom light is essentially just a brighter version of the Bloom light, and it has Bluetooth, which they are adding to pretty much all of their lights now. The light strip is the more interesting
it.
upgrade.
Thankfully.
So currently, for those that don't use Philips Hue light strips, it's the light strip itself is integrated with the box that controls power and data connectivity, and they are making it so that those can actually be disconnected. And so, for one, if let's
Yeah.
say your Hue strip is defective within its warranty period, they could send you just the light and not the entire communication array, which would be cheaper for them to RMA.
Mine just
Yeah.
broke, so I would be
But then
happy
in
about
addition,
that.
potentially accessories could come out to connect in between, to add other functionality.
Yeah, which is
But I
amazing.
think the bigger upgrade for this new version of the light strip is that right now is
I agree.
the light strip. So it's a certain length, and there's certain points you can cut it. But you cut it, you obviously lose portion of the light strip you just spent $90 on. You're literally throwing it away. Well, with the newest version,
Yeah.
they're going to be having essentially like a way to reconnect that. So you can, if you set it up for a desk now and you decide you want to change the configuration later, really the only issue you'd have at that point is the adhesive, which there are ways to deal with that. So,
Yep. Yeah, you can just
yeah.
peel it
So
off,
it's
use
just
other
a
adhesive.
much better upgrade. If you're considering buying a Hue light strip, just wait for these new ones. It's gonna it be a better experience overall. That's really it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually waiting to get instead of replacing mine to wait for these. So really quick, video cards leaked a new super curved monitor from Samsung, which is interesting. I'll put an image up of it, but it's I don't know how exactly to describe it other than super curved. It's just a much tighter radius, and so you have this, like, it kind of wraps around you. And they did not write a full article that I could find about this or anything. It was just a tweet of a picture of Samsung has a hugging monitor. But for monitors, I like curves. I don't like them for TVs, but this could be kind of cool. So
Yeah.
all right. So then the next one is we saw a laptop that's coming out from Samsung that's going to have Intel Foveros, but we don't really have any information in terms of performance yet. So I don't even really care that much about reading the specifications of it because we don't really know what it's going to perform like because it's so different. It's a 5-core hybrid processor with Intel's 3D Foveros technology. And so I'm just like, okay, cool, interesting. I gotta really do a deep dive on it and understand all of it before I'm okay with saying this is a cool feature or cool thing. But we'll see if Foveros is able to help Intel on the laptop market. But I feel like that's the area they don't need to worry about as much right now. Cough servers, cough HEDT. But anyway. And then another one that we actually have here from video cards is some Ryzen benchmark leaks. And I'll run down these really quick, but the Ryzen Pro series for the 4000 series has some benchmarks leaked. So there's the Ryzen 3, 5, and 7 Pro. It's the 4200G, 4400G, and 4700G. So they do have integrated GPUs, but the 3D Mark physics score was 13,000 for the Ryzen 3, 19,000 for the Ryzen 5, and 23,000 for the Ryzen 7. And then they also have a graphics score of 3,500, 4,000, 4,300 respectively. So potentially pretty good performance. And within that, we also saw what appears to be a Ryzen 3 4200G versus the 3200G performance. But I'm going to take it with a grain of salt because the chart actually doesn't really... I don't know how much I trust it, basically, is what I'm getting at. But it looks like the 4200G is up to 57% faster, while GPU performance is lower, which is weird. I'd be really surprised if GPU performance is lower because I feel like CPU performance is not the issue that they have right now, but we'll see. And then final topic, speaking of Plex earlier, just something for those that may want to know. Plex is now has a watch together feature it's still in beta, but it's like Netflix where you can have multiple people watching the same show synced up and multiple people pausing it. So if somebody needs to get up and go do something, they don't have to be in the same room as you and be able to pause it or text you to pause it. They can just do it and it's fine. It'll show who paused it. They have not talked about any limits of how many people you can sync with or anything like that. There probably isn't any actually hard limit in place. But it's a beta feature, so it may have some issues. They're kind of warning about that. And it's only supported on Apple. So both iOS and Apple TV. Android, including Android TV, Fire TV, NVIDIA Shield, and Roku. So you can't use it on like LG WebOS right now, or like the desktop PC or Windows HTPC setups or anything like that. But they're just kind of wanting people to test it, see how it works. But their goal is to try and help people that are having to still kind of stay at home right now and social distance. So, do you have any other topics you want to add to
since
the
we had mentioned Borderlands
tiny
earlier,
news?
the Legendary Collection is out on Switch. So if you want to play Borderlands on mobile, you should probably look at reviews and see how it performs, and then buy it if it's good.
Yeah, which I imagine is
So-
probably okay. Yeah,
But
so
yeah, that's it.
it's probably usable. All right. I think that covers everything, though, guys. Like we said, it was a little bit of a shorter podcast, about half the length of the last one. And just a little bit of a drier week, but we'll be back next week with more tech news for you guys. I don't want anybody here to have withdrawal, so
If the
I
announcement
hope this was
goes on the
enough.
day it's expected, then likely we'll be talking about PS5 next week.
Yeah. So we will actually have a really big topic to talk about, so that'll be exciting. Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what you think, and watch out for some interesting like regular video content to be coming out on the channel. I've got some cool stuff planned, so